Welcome to the podcast, Working Drummer. Dynamic interviews that tell you everything you need to know about being a professional drummer and a few things you may not want to know. Produced by Mike Jackson and hosted by myself, Matthew Krause.
The happiest I've ever been in my life, let me tell you.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because in my 20s, I was, when I was with Buck, I always felt so insecure about not getting a full education. I quit school,
You joined Buck when you were 17
17,
years old.
yeah.
Right. Well, from Corpus Christi,
Texas. Yeah.
Born and raised?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you were playing there, and...
Are you recording now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did
All
a
right.
little bit of background. And I one of the coolest, well, I wouldn't say coolest, but one of the most interesting things that I read was the night that you met Buck was the night that JFK was assassinated.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And I mentioned that to my wife, and she said, wow, in Texas? And he was in Texas? And I thought, oh yeah, that's right, because it was Dallas where he was assassinated. Can you tell me a little bit, maybe, what that experience was like as far as you were working in a club?
Okay, I had been, this is my first country and western job. Okay, there had been, it's a funny little story how I ended up with a job, because there were three other drummers two of them that I knew, and they were all older than me. And the first drummer, they had all gone to my same junior high school. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the name because it's funny too. It was called the Wind Seal Junior High School, Buckaroos.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we were. So these other guys that were older than me had, especially one that I never met, had taken the job at the Maverick Club. Mm-hmm. That's where I met Buck. And it was a new club in town. Actually, it was in North Beach. Mm-hmm. And he, for some reason, did not stay there very long. So he passed it on to somebody else that he knew, who was the bass drummer in the marching band that I was in. Okay? So he didn't last too long. And he passed it on to an even older drummer who was going to North Texas. He was on his way in between finished a senior in high school probably, and going to North Texas State University. Okay. He took it, and he did not like it at all. So he called me up, and we were pretty good friends.
This is the club gig you're talking about.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
The Maverick Club where Buck. That's where Buck. Where I met Buck. Okay. So I had quit school that year, which was 1963.
Okay.
And I had asked permission to do that because I wanted to move to New York City and play jazz, study and play jazz. Yeah. So I was still in town. So this was in September, okay?
Right.
So my friend Don Sowell calls up and says, listen, no one likes this job, but it's a gig, it's money in your pocket. Are you interested? And at that time, I had already become a working drummer, so to speak, because I quit school and I was already jobbing around town. I was 17.
Was this the only work that you were doing? Is this how you were earning?
Well, I was living at home, but that's all I was doing was just playing drums.
Right.
And through my drum teacher, I got a lot of calls. Yeah. I lived in a small city, so my drum teacher was the main guy that everybody called. Right. Union gigs, okay?
Oh, okay.
Strictly union. And so I joined the union at a very young age. I had a car at a very young age, so I'd drive myself to jobs, okay? And so my friend Don says, are you interested? And I hated country music. I hated the sound of Hank Williams, that real old-style nasally singing. And I thought, it's a job. Forget it. It's a job.
Yeah.
Go do the job. Find out what it's really like, So I said yes. So I show up, and the main thing is to always have an open mind.
Sure.
And I've always had that. so, so
Even at 17.
even at 17, even though I was a devout jazz drummer, that's what I wanted. But you see, I grew up with Tex-Mex music, playing, like wanting to play accordion in a Tex-Mex band.
Okay.
And so, but it all led me to drums because of the marching bands.
Oh, okay.
That's what inspired me to want to be a drummer
Okay.
to begin with. So I take this job, and I'm going along okay. The first week they say, well, we're going to have to go find some uniforms. And I thought, I'm not going to stick around this long to get uniforms. So I spent a whole day looking for Western-style outfits, which I absolutely hated. Fortunately, they couldn't find enough for all the guys in the band, so I was safe for a while. So I was there maybe a month. During that month, they started bringing in features from Nashville. Like Justin Tubb, who was Ernest Tubb's son, had a popular song at that time, and so they brought him in, and we backed him up. So that happened maybe a handful of times, and then I'd heard Buck Owens on the jukebox, I'd heard Ray Price, I'd heard Jim Reeves, and I'm mentioning them because those are the ones that I liked. Slowly I started...
Piqued your interest.
Yeah. Excuse me. And so country music wasn't so bad until we got on the bandstand. And the band that I played with was strictly old style, so. But anyway, I did the best, and I could, and...
I find it funny you say, in 1963, you were playing only old, not the new stuff, but the old stuff.
Well, it was, that's the sound that I remember. Yeah. It was very, very stiff, and the band leader wore like a Western shirt and matching Western pants and boots that had like a Thunderbird on them, the old style boots that was popular back then. And he might have worn a hat sometimes. So, and he played rhythm guitar, very stiff rhythm guitar. So, okay.
Upright bass?
Electric bass.
Electric bass.
Very boomy electric bass. I was used to playing with upright players because a lot of casuals that I did around town, tuxedo jobs, country club and this and that, dances, they all had acoustic bass still.
Yeah.
And a lot of the music was either society music, where you play foxtrots, waltzes, tangos, paso doble, you name it. My drum teacher taught me all these rhythms so that I would be prepared to play any job,
Yeah, sure.
So, and at that time, rock and roll was like the Ventures, that style.
Okay.
Just before the Beatles really kind of started making their mark.
Right. Really close.
Especially in that part of Texas.
Okay.
Okay, so rock and roll didn't really figure much into music. It was brainless music, so to speak, at that time. Because if you listen to the Ventures, it was very simplistic, and it didn't really, either you were into it or you weren't, and it didn't really do much for me, But anyway, I still did any kind of job that came around.
Right.
And so the country style drumming that I was doing, without knowing what to play when I went, was basically like swing style,
Okay.
because the band that I played with, they did traditional country songs like Hank Williams,
Yeah.
two-beat feel, or they did some Bob Wills type of Western swing. So my interest in jazz drumming helped me kind of get that kind of together.
The
to
shuffle feel.
Well, the shuffle feel, exactly, because there was no music that I played that required a shuffle feel. So I wasn't doing shuffle so much then as opposed to a swing pattern,
I see.
and a backbeat on the snare.
Yeah.
Not cross stick,
Back.
but they wanted to hear like a Bob Wills style, what I would call now a Bob Wills style of drumming. That's how old, you know, the sound of that band was, you know, and there was people that liked that, you know, that's what they came to the club for.
Right.
So, in hearing Buck Owens, I'd heard something different. In hearing Ray Price on the records, on the jukebox, there was a totally different sound coming out of the drums there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was influencing me,
Mm-hmm.
and I was maybe applying it to some of the songs on the job. So come November the 23rd, was it? Or 24th?
I haven't.
Kennedy's assassination.
Right.
Okay.
I thought I had written it
Well,
down.
that was happened on a Saturday. The reason I remember, because we did this radio show from the club at noon, right at 12 o'clock, for about a half hour. It was a feature, try to bring people out to the club. So
Did you know that Kennedy was in Dallas? Did you guys know?
Was
it news?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I might have known, but I do recall that we all get to the club, getting ready to start the show, and the MC, the guy that did the radio announcer, Jimmy Dale, I think his name was, came up and said, you know, we're not going to do the show today because something has happened in Dallas. The president's been shot,
Wow.
you know, and we need to report that. So we all just kind of went home, sad and what have you.
Yeah.
But Buck Owens was supposed to appear that night, okay? And what had happened the night before, as quite often happened with the band traveling, this is Buck's band, they would sometimes get in early, a day before,
Yeah.
to wherever the club was, and they would go, a couple of the guys would go hang out at the club, just check it out and
Sure.
and see what was
The night.
so that's how it happened that Don Rich, who was Buck's band leader, so to speak, and Buck's right arm, played fiddle and lead guitar,
Okay.
and also sang harmony.
Yeah.
He became very famous because of those things in connection with Buck. Okay, their steel guitar player at the time, Jay McDonald, and Mel King was the drummer at the time.
Okay.
So those three, I'm sorry, Doyle Holly, the bass player,
Okay.
came out.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the band came out. Buck wasn't there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he didn't arrive till the next day. So, and so Don heard me play.
Yeah.
So I didn't meet any of the guys that night. But the next night, when Buck was performing at the club,
Yeah.
we were supposed to be there and alternate bands.
Gotcha.
Buck decided, I'm going to play the whole night. Well, the place was just about empty, because of what had happened with President
Right,
Kennedy.
Sure.
There weren't more than 50 people there all night, I don't think. So Buck, rather than just sit around and do nothing, I think he had to fulfill his contract. So I guess he figured it was best just to stay on the bandstand as long as possible, get through the night,
Yeah.
and be done. So I decided, it's a good thing I decided to hang around and listen to him. And I was totally amazed because they sounded nothing like the band I played in. And I remember distinctly that from the time they started playing, I was just like in another world. I loved it.
Yeah.
So immediately, and I couldn't get over. I had never heard music that was like right in your face, easy to listen to, but the sound was not boomy. The guitars were very bright, steel guitar very bright, and even the bass, electric bass, I'd never heard an electric bass sound like that before. You could actually hear everything he was doing. Definition, that boomy sound that was popular then was not happening with this band, with Buck's band.
Interesting.
So I was just totally, it was like they were from Mars or somewhere else, because I'd never heard.
Sonically, it just was.
Yeah, it just kind of just blew me away because I'd never heard anything that sounded especially so good. Everything they did sounded great.
Yeah.
And the drummer had a 20-inch bass drum, a 20-inch Red Sparkle Slingerland bass drum, a snare drum, a Radio King snare drum,
Yeah.
a hi-hat, and that's it. No toms, No cymbals other than just the hi-hat. And that's all he played all night long, was the cross stick and the hi-hat.
Right.
And at that time, that was the Buck Owens sound
Yeah.
for drums.
Yeah.
So, but even, and I checked everyone out, and how can that drummer just play that one beat all night long, song after song, and it's not boring? That comes from when you play with conviction, and you put all you have into it. It comes alive, and it doesn't matter if it's repeated. If it sounds good, it's going to sound good.
And if it feels
exactly,
good, and the rest of the band
it's
is
the
playing
right
together. Oh, I know that's
it's the right feel, even in just that one beat at different tempos. So that was a lesson in itself that I stored in my subconscious and used later. It didn't really there was too much coming at me to.
So were they looking for a new drummer?
No. So I'll try to get to that as quick as I can.
Yeah, sure.
So I stayed there the whole night, and at the end of the night, went up to talk to the guys, and I met Don and Doyle and everyone and Buck, and Doyle Holly, the bass player, took me off to the side and said, "Listen, if anything develops out in California, would you be interested in coming out and playing?" And at that time, I had plans to go to New York City, not California,
Yeah.
And I said, "Sure," just I didn't want to say no, and because he wanted my phone number.
Yeah.
So I gave him my phone number. So that's who knew how to get in touch with me. The last week of January, I got a phone call from Buck Owens asking me if I would like to join his band as a permanent member. And I'm thinking, well, I was still living at home. My first thing was, I have to ask permission to leave home.
Yeah, right. 17.
Yeah, exactly. So he said, fine. I said, so I said, let me talk to my parents and I'll call you back. And he kind of explained, he said, I had no idea who Buck Owens really was at that time, other than just on the jukebox I'd heard.
Right.
I'd heard him, and then I saw him live. But that did not mean I didn't know anything about going out on the road or bands that worked on the road, That lifestyle I knew absolutely nothing about,
Yeah.
And so he said, when he said, we'll be doing some traveling, he shouldn't have said some traveling. He said, you'll do all the records, we'll do TV shows, but all of that just went by me so quick it didn't really register. And so he said, and it pays so much, and he says, I'll send you the money for the plane fare. Call me let me know by tomorrow if you're doing this or not. So I talked to my parents, called him back, everything was go. He sent me the money that I needed to fly out to California.
Do you remember how much, just curious, the price of a plane ticket to Corpus Christi to?
I really don't remember.
So this was Bakersfield that you
Bakersfield,
flew out
yeah.
to? Okay.
So I flew out. He called me probably on a Monday or Tuesday, and then by Saturday I flew out to Bakersfield.
Yeah.
And so my route was to go from Corpus Christi, Texas, to Dallas, from Dallas to L.A., from L.A. to Bakersfield. That's
Yeah. Gotcha.
okay. So I get there, and it's a really foggy day. I knew nothing about Bakersfield.
Yeah.
And this is before Bakersfield was known for the Bakersfield sound.
Okay.
And so I get there, and I don't see any of the guys that I remember seeing at the club. And it was all these women converged on me. It was the wives. They were there to meet the new drummer in the band. So Buck's wife was there.
The welcoming committee.
Yeah, exactly. Two of the steel guitar player's wife was there. the lead player's wife was there, except the bass player. She had a big family, so she couldn't be there for some reason. But anyway, and so Buck's wife explained the reason why he and the band weren't there is they were in Hollywood at Capitol Records recording what became a major hit for him, Together Again.
Yeah.
Okay, which featured steel guitar and My Heart Skips a Beat. I don't know if you've ever heard that
Not
song
this,
or not.
no, I know. Together Again, yes, I have, but no.
Okay, well, Heart Skips a Beat, it's got this little tom roll.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that distinguishes it from any other Buck Owens song. But the drummer, and I found this out later, the drummer was Mel Taylor, who was the drummer with the Ventures.
Oh, interesting.
He was a freelance session player.
Thus the tom roll.
Huh?
Maybe that's how the tom roll made it
Well,
in
there you go. So he was with the Ventures at the time, and he was basically a studio player on call for anything, and so he could play, and you can hear his sound is a lot looser than the way I ended up playing or the previous drummer.